Hello. Well, hello. Hey, Jada. All right. Hello. Good to see you. Why am I screaming? I don't know. Good to see you. Hello. Do I get no other hellos? I mean, well, good afternoon, Samaya. Thank you. And hello, Jasmine. Thank you. Okay, wait. Let's and hello, Gianna. Good afternoon, Montserrat. Wait, we got. Oh, and there's Abdel, who looks, and there's Jose, and there's Sarah. All right, now we're talking. And yes, and good afternoon, Stephen. The top of the afternoon, Abdel. Hello, Ashley. Sorry, I'm going out of order because of it. Good afternoon, Monster. Oh, and more people. Wait, Jada. How did Jada just come into the wait? Wait, is Jada here twice? Wait. Top of the afternoon, Abdel. Good afternoon, Stephen from 2D. Indeed, you guys are very different looking in 2D. Good afternoon, Jose. Good afternoon, Brianna. Hi, Sarah. Hello. Awesome. Okay, wait, and someone else. But how did Jada go? Oh, okay, wait. Okay. Oh, at least she's smiling. That's nice. Okay. I didn't say that. Yes, I did. Wait. But someone else is that the whole waiting room? Oh, okay. Fair enough. Thank you, Jada. Okay, well, we're on the same page then. Okay. Thank you, direct chat person speaking on behalf of other direct chat. So I'm starting to get, this is like a very special week, folks. Well, one, because you've already turned in your exam, and like I don't have it yet. I hope I mentioned Monday. I don't have it. There was not even a chance. There wasn't even a snowball's chance that I was going to have it for today. Hopefully I have it for Monday, but I don't have any new information other than you should still breathe out that you did it, and there's not new homework right now, and that we're actually, as it turns out, going to have a somewhat relaxing, somewhat celebratory day in honor of you all doing this exam, and in honor of the fact that I'm starting to meet some of you people in person, speaking of which, like some of you people, I'm starting to know what you're like in 6D, which is really nice. Some people stopped by and said hello the other day, which was really nice. And the more I can get to know you, the happier I am, maybe the happier, yes, yes. Hello. No, I'm so glad that I'm getting to know. So yes, I'm glad that I'm getting to know. Good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon, Alejandro. Good afternoon, Osmael. Hello, Brian. Again, a plug for next semester, please take 204. I highly recommend it. I mean, it's required. That's, by the way, secret in life. Like, get a job where you teach the thing that people have to take. It helps with, keeping your job. But anyway, yes, so it's good to see all of you. Oh, and more people are coming. Okay. Bear with me for a second. So more people are coming. Bear with me for a second, if you don't mind. Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, bear with me for one more. Hello. Okay, we're gonna get started in a second. But oh, and Zoom and I lost my board again, as usual. All right, we'll fix that in a minute. Okay. But no, I'm very excited that I'm starting to meet some of you people in person. And please, it makes a difference. It's nice. I appreciate it. It means a lot. Okay, bear with me. Bear with me again, please. Okay, someone's here. Okay. Sorry, things are happening. What else is new? Bear with me, please. Okay. I know someone's in the waiting room, and I know someone's in the waiting room. I'm trying to get them out. I promise. Trying. Okay, there he is. Okay. I'm trying to see what Tobias's thing is today. Unbelievable. What is it? Whoa. Well, it's not a Pokemon. Okay. It's good to see you all. Okay. Here's what we are going to do in like 1 second. Oh, and someone else is here. Okay. Well, and Miriam is like totally upside down. Hi. Talk about relativity. It's funny. You see, so from our perspective, Miriam is upside down, but from her perspective, we're upside down, and that's relativity. Oh, and then she said, "Wait, is that on purpose?" That's correct. And now, from our perspective, she's a black box. True. Thank you. Yes, true. And from okay, and okay. Sorry, I meant to not do that. Okay, all right. That was to you. I meant to not do that. Sorry. Okay. You can't fix it. Now I'm talking to Claire. Well, that's relativity, right? Okay. Thank you, direct chat person. Got it. Okay. Thank you, direct chat person. Totally understood. Awesome. Okay. We are going to get rolling now. My board is still, bear with me. My board is still doing weird things that I can't actually understand. I don't know what my board is doing. Okay. But here's the deal. We're going to do something a little bit different today, kind of to hopefully this will be a little bit more relaxing. It'll be hopefully educational, hopefully, but a little bit of a change in pace for today. So we've been discussing so everything in physics comes from Galileo, if I haven't made that clear already. Every next step in physics, all the way, like through all of what we're doing, through physics 204, through the 20th century, through Einstein, every next chapter or next topic or next discovery or next law or next way of thinking in physics can be understood as yet another extension on Galileo's principle of relativity. Like honestly, like every new implication in physics is in a way a new way of understanding the idea that velocity is a relation between two objects. It is not a property of any one single object. Velocity is always a comparison, right? That's what we're just saying over and over in all these different and increasingly mathematical ways. And all of that idea that velocity is a relation, or put another way, that if anybody ever asks, how fast is something going? The next question that must be asked is compared to what, right? That the Earth is going 0 miles an hour compared to itself, or we are going 0 miles an hour compared to Earth, and the sun is going 65,000 miles an hour compared to us, but we are going 65,000 miles an hour compared to the sun. And both statements are equally correct, and both physics are correct, et cetera, et cetera. And the bottom line, and all of this idea that velocities add like vectors, that velocities are relations, not properties. All this comes from the idea in the first place that we somehow, on the one hand, feel that we're on a stable Earth each and every day, day in and day out. We conduct ourselves as though the floor beneath us is stationary and stable and still. And yet, at the same time, we somehow believe that we're hurtling through space at 65,000 miles an hour past a sun all the time, while a sun is hurtling through space at 650,000 miles per hour past the galactic center all the time. And while that galactic center is hurling past some focal point of the nebula supercluster, of the Virgo supercluster at like 6 million miles per hour all the time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, honestly, we believe that we're all in motion past all of ourselves, and that everything is in motion, and that nothing is objectively or actually or literally or mathematically still in the universe. Everything is moving past everything, and yet even while we're moving, we can feel as though we're stable because velocity is a matter of perspective. It's not a matter of intrinsic or objective reality. In other words, we believe the Earth is moving, but we don't feel it. That in itself is weird. And that is not the way people always thought about the Earth, right? Because it's not a natural way to think about the Earth. For thousands and thousands of years, many people treated the Earth as though it were stationary and at the center of the universe, because that's totally our experience of it. And I sort of keep saying that and keep coming back to that, but it raises the question. Oh, sorry, there's something in the chat. Sorry. It raises the question. Oh, yeah. Wait, so when I'm not at John Jay, to answer direct, so Maine, like the state of Maine, to answer a direct chat person's question. I don't know if they're still, well, anyway. All right. So hold on one second. One second. Sorry. Oh, you got it. You heard me. Okay, cool. Okay. Wow, you can do two things at once. I can't. Okay. So the question that I want to raise right now as a little break for today, I know it sounds like I'm just babbling about the same stuff I'm always babbling about, which is true, because there is like one big point in physics, which is really the point I just made, which is that the Earth moves, yet we don't feel it. And that's a crazy point. And it's so crazy that it took thousands and thousands of years for people to accept it, because it doesn't seem right. Like, why should we think that the Earth is moving? So it does raise the question, why should we think that the Earth is moving? Like, why do we even think that? Like, where does that idea even come from? And so today, as a public service, I want to try to address that question. This is off topic. You don't have to take notes. You can just relax and listen. Hopefully it will be relaxing. As a public service or as a to the side kind of thing, I want to read you a story. Like, no joke. I want to read you a story. Something in the chat. That's funny. Well said, Jada. No, she's got a point there. Fair enough. And maybe sitting down too long might include this class experience on certain days. But yeah, that is a good, right? Often we do feel sort of dizzy or weird, but often we don't. Like, why do we sometimes feel like we feel the Earth move and sometimes we don't? Whereas we believe that the Earth is always moving. And make no mistake, again, let me repeat to everybody, when we say that we believe the Earth is moving, we don't mean so slowly that we barely feel it. We mean 65,000 miles an hour. Like, that's faster than any rocket ship ever goes, or ever needs to go. Rocket ships, in order to get to the moon, only need to go like 45,000 miles an hour. 65,000 miles an hour is freaking fast. And we believe that the Earth is doing this. And it does raise the question, why do we believe that? When did we start believing it? So what I want to do as a sort of just relaxing there as a public service message, I want to read you a story. I mean, no joke. And in fact, I want to read you a children's story, no joke. And it's a children's story that is written in an attempt, literally, that's what I'm going to do in a minute. So please, but bear with me. I think it's worth it, I think. And so bear with me. I want to read you a children's story that is written to try to get across the idea of why we believe the Earth is moving in the first place. It's meant to be it's meant to be a modern, updated version of a satire that Galileo himself wrote in the 16th century in order to get his point across about the Earth moving. Because he knew it was a dangerous, delicate point that could get him into trouble. He wrote something called Dialogue on Two Chief Systems of the World, and he wrote sort of a play that had three characters in it, and the three characters were arguing about whether the Earth was moving or not. And one character represented someone who absolutely thought the Earth was not moving. One character was the character who absolutely thought the Earth was moving, and one character was sort of in between, hearing both arguments. And it's a satirical dialogue, so it's meant to put all the arguments out on the table and show people why Galileo felt that the Earth was moving. But it was done in this dialogue way to partly to protect Galileo, so that he couldn't hopefully get in direct trouble for directly actually asserting that the Earth was moving. But it was pretty clear what he was doing, because, for example, the character that he made, who was meant to represent sort of the view of the Pope at the time that the Earth was absolutely not moving, that character Galileo named Simplicio, as in simpleton, as in simplistic, as in like the dumb guy. So anybody who, it didn't take much reading between the lines to know sort of which side of the equation Galileo was really on, but that's what Galileo, and it did get him into trouble, actually. As it turns out, it did get him into trouble. But Galileo, in order to get his point across as to why he felt the Earth was moving and what was coming from his telescopic observations to lead him to this very controversial belief, he wrote a dialogue, or a trialogue, really, between three characters. And it's very long and it's dense and it's awesome, but it is long and dense. And if Osmael doesn't like Aristotle, she may well not like that. I'm just saying, with all due respect, she might find that story a little bit thick and a little bit ponderous. But there's an updated version that's meant for children that's much shorter. That in fact I wrote that a while ago. I wrote when my first child was born, and I'm actually going to read it to you right now. Bear with me. And it's whatever. It's on Amazon, et cetera, et cetera. But hopefully it makes the point a little bit more clear. And I'm doing it partly so that we can all relax today, and also because I'm doing it just as a relaxing day, but hopefully it will get the point across of why, satirically or easily, of why we believe that the Earth moves. So bear with me. I'm going to yeah, okay. Okay, so again, it's a children's story. It's short. I promise. That's all we're going to do today in class. I do hope that you do listen, because I think it will get some points across in a soft way. Plus, it's a self-indulgence on my part. To be totally honest, just so that I'm not being dishonest, partly this is because we just took an exam and we should chill. Also, to be also totally honest, some people, and I'm glad that I've now met some of you as human beings, so I'm doing this sort of a human gesture. I don't normally do this in class, but also in the other class this morning, to be honest, it turned out, well, I'll tell you afterwards. It doesn't matter. But we did something weird in the other class, so I just want to keep things even and fair and not make you suffer with too much hard physics if the other class didn't have to suffer with hard physics today. So anyway, okay. So this is 7 short chapters, and it's not a coincidence that it's 7 to get us. The idea is just list it. The idea is, again, a modern children's story, just to get us across the idea that that the Earth moves, and It's the actual story is illustrated, but I can't show you the illustrations right now. And the illustrations are Galileo's illustrations himself. And this is called And Still It Moves, and it's on Amazon if you care, whatever. Okay, chapter 1, The Sun. Jesse, Missy, Jean, and oh, sorry. Oh, this is an old version. Oh, sorry. Wow, this is an old version. Okay, well, whatever. Chapter 1, The Sun. Jesse, Missy, Jean, and Professor P.O.P.O. lived on a land called Earth. Earth was a big land, divided into many smaller places. Their place was called 40 degrees north of the equator, 74 degrees west of the prime meridian. Their time was called the first day of autumn. Once again, it was late at night, thrillingly late, so late that somehow a little later, and soon it would be early in the morning, way before the afternoon. 1 second, hold on, sorry, okay. So late that somehow a little later, it would be early in the morning, way before the afternoon. It was never fully clear how that part ever fully worked. Once again, Jesse, Missy Jean, and Professor P.O.P.O. were in the laboratory on 4, near the corner of 10 and 59, in the building named T, of John J. Once again, Missy Jean was at the counter working on a secret potion. This time, thus far, the potion involved sodium bicarbonate, yogurt, ice chips, and a few iron filings. The potion did not do what it was supposed to do. It was, however, unusually magnetic for something so tasty. Jesse was on the floor studying how rattles and small stuffed animals behaved when he did not put them in his mouth. Oh, wait, someone's in the waiting room. Sorry. Hold on. I know this is awkward and weird, but I'm reading it anyway. Okay, honestly, this is well, anyway, I'll tell you why I'm reading this today also in a minute, but Jesse was on the floor studying how rattles and small stuffed animals behaved when he did not put them in his mouth. Jesse had recently started to make observations under this challenging condition. His observations were still limited. He was fairly convinced that stuffed animals, when kept away from his mouth, were neither tasty nor magnetic. Professor P.O.P.O. was at his desk. Without looking, Missy Jean just knew it, and she knew what he was doing, scribbling symbol after symbol, all somehow neat and yet unreadable at the same time, in that thick brown journal of unlined paper. He called the symbols math, but Missy Jean knew better. Missy Jean had learned math last year in her school. Her school was called 92 Street Y. Her class had finished all of math in time for summer, and she even got her big sticker sheets right. So Missy Jean knew what math was all about, numbers. Whatever symbols covered Professor P.O.'s unlined sheets, they certainly were not numbers. Professor P.O.P.O. looked at his watch. He looked at Jesse and he looked at Missy Jean. He said, "Let's go out and see something beautiful." Nobody wished to argue. Missy Jean put on her shoes. Professor P.O.P.O. scooped Jesse off the floor. They went outside, hailed a cab, and stood on the edge of the drive called FDR. The three looked off to what Otto called the east. A sphere of blazing crimson was rising magnificently behind 3 buildings near 2 bridges that came from one short place. The place melted off into a mysterious island that Otto called long. Right now, it was too long to see and too wide to cross, but it all grew out and left, if Jesse heard Otto right, from a blue part called the Sound. Jesse was a little confused by this name. All the ups and overs and outs and colors seemed so nice, so slow and silent, cool and quiet, not like a sound, but also not like a picture. Not at all like one of those pictures you could hold in your hand on a buzzing phone. No, watching the sunrise was more like sitting on the couch with Missy Jean in a peaceful movie, but lost in cushions made of clouds and no reasons to rewind. Things were calm and clear with Missy Jean. She even knew how to spell movie, DVD. He was proud. At that moment, at least, things were not unclear to Missy Jean, but neither were they clear. They just were. She had stopped listening to Professor P.O.P.O. or to anything else from the moment she started looking. Her mouth hung slightly open. She did not hear Professor P.O.P.O. when he told Jesse that the fiery circle was called the sun. She did not at that moment need to know whether the treat was called sunrise or run size or Googleplex. It was a treat no matter what anybody wanted to call it. The three remained quiet for a long time after the stars faded from view and the sun dominated the low sky. The whole thing was indeed a movie. Both the fading stars and the rising sun trekked from one sky edge onto their way to the other. It appeared as though Missy Jean, Professor Pio, and Jessie were under a big round tent. Somebody invisible was pulling the tent top. Somebody invisible was pulling the tent top from left to right. At last, it dawned on Missy Jean. It might be nice to see that again sometime. She paused, but some other time, I think. I'm too happy right now. Jessie was also happy. He was happy for the sun. He was sure the sun would get some rest and burble up again some other time. Jessie, Missy Jean, and Professor Pio went home and ate and played and napped and played and ate. Chapter 2, Moon. Before pajama time, Jessie was aware of the dusty, dusky traces of sunlight. Were they coming or going? At the lab, Jessie found Missy Jean. She too was looking forward to another sunrise. Finally, Otto said, let's bring our suppers outside and see if the sun rises again. And so they did, but so it didn't. It was nighttime. Instead, they saw the moon, far higher than the place in which they had recently found the sun. The moon was bright and beautiful, but it looked like someone had bitten it. Half of the moon was missing. Why? Thought Jessie. He remembered one night when the moon looked like a perfect circle. He remembered it well because the moon kept following him around that night, even when he was in his car seat, zooming up that same FDR drive. What kind of creature would eat his moon? Jessie thought, and Missy Jean asked. Professor Pio assured them, don't you worry. The moon's still there. Part of it is just hidden in shadow. The moon cannot make its own light the way the sun can. Hang on one second. Sorry. Okay. Sunlight bounces off the moon and heads towards our eyes. Sometimes more gets bounced, sometimes less. It depends where the moon is. Supper was long, leisurely, and quiet. Missy Jean was deep in her mashed potatoes. Jessie was deep in thought. How do some things make their own light? The sun did, but the moon didn't? Did he? Did Missy Jean? Professor Pio probably did. He certainly made a lot of his own noise. Chapter 3, Stars. What about the stars? Asked Missy Jean. Why can't we say hello to them before we say goodnight to ourselves? Why not indeed? Replied Professor Pio. The three walked outside and Professor Pio pointed up. You see that sideways V that looks like a mouth? It's the head of a bull named Taurus. That bright red giant star, Aldebaran, is its eye. Missy Jean and Jessie loved animals. They kept their eyes on the bull for a long, long time. Long enough, it turned out, to notice that it, like all the animals and the fish and the twins and the hunters and everything else around it, it seemed, slid smoothly across the sky, from down and left to up and center to down and right, it seemed. Good job, world, said Missy Jean. Just keep turning around us like that. Yes, good job, world, thought Jessie. Good night, you two, declared Professor Pio. The early bird catches the worm. Well, Missy Jean was not so interested in catching a worm, but Jessie had no strong feelings on the matter. His eyelids dropped fully by the word bird. Somehow, he later found himself in bed. Chapter 4, Venus. The next evening, the three rushed outside and zoomed over to the Hudson River to see if they could catch the sun setting in what Professor Pio called the west. There was a big tugboat blocking their view. Sadly, it seemed that they had arrived too late. Happily, however, they arrived just in time to see the biggest, brightest star they had ever noticed. It seemed to be setting, just like they had been hoping for the sun. Wow, dazzling, thought Jessie. Is that super-duper star always to the right of Taurus? Asked Missy Jean. Actually, no, explained Professor Pio. That thing wanders back and forth, but it always stays near the sun. It wanders past the bull, past the ram, past the scorpion, and past the other 9 animals who march together across the southern sky. Because it wanders, it's actually called a planet. It's the planet Venus, finished Professor P.O.P.O. Jesse suddenly felt different from how he had a moment ago. He'd been excited happy, and now he was calm happy. It was funny how having a name for something memorable seemed to solve a mystery. It was also funny how a mystery solution could create its own confusion, which was more fun, searching or finding. Chapter 5, Jupiter. The next night involved more searching and more finding. The 3 went out far later than they had on previous nights. After this evening's dinner, juicy chicken to eat and chickeny juice to drink, they played and sang and they played and sang and danced and danced and sang and danced and played for tons of time before heading out to the edge of the valley. The sun was long gone. Venus was long gone. Even Taurus was getting close to that mountain in the west. But up in the sky, amongst the connect-the-dot crab that Professor P.O.P.O. had called Cancer, blazed another unusually bright star, almost as big and beautiful as Venus. Neither Missy Jean nor Jesse failed to notice. How could they? Professor P.O.P.O. did not fail to answer their unasked question. You got it, guys. That's another planet. That one is Jupiter. Planets aren't always that bright, but they do always dance to their own tune. They always wander through the stars. Someday, some year, you won't find Jupiter among the crab stars. You'll find it among the lines of the lion or the specks of the sea goat. Chapter 6, Phases of Venus. The next and final evening, Jesse, Missy Jean, and Professor P.O.P.O. rushed out early in order to try to catch the sun before it dropped behind the big mountain. Again, they missed it. It was too bad, but not too bad. Neither Jesse nor Missy Jean truly wanted to win in a competition against Mother Nature nor Father Time. Any disappointment they might have felt disappeared the moment Professor P.O.P.O. pulled 2 small but clunky black objects from his bag. Each object was a pair of binoculars. Jesse and Missy Jean each gazed toward the mountain through the long, thick glasses. Suddenly, it seemed as though they had stepped a dozen times closer to outer space. Without the binoculars, they spotted and recognized Venus. With the binoculars, a bit of confusion set in. Missy Jean spoke. Now Venus looks like the moon. Jesse knew what she meant. Now that he was closer to Venus, it no longer looked like a wandering star. Like the moon, this circle was now missing a chunk. So some sky wanderers did not make their own light? Professor P.O. nodded as though he heard Jesse's thought. Instead of answering, he asked a different question. Missy Jean, do you think the firm ground below you makes its own light? Missy Jean replied with confidence, no, silly, dirt isn't fire. Makes sense to me, Professor P.O.P.O. said. It made sense to Jesse also. Chapter 7, Moons of Jupiter. Indeed, at some times, some space things were starting to seem clearer to Jesse. Yet he was surprised to find at other times that the more he looked at some other things, Indeed, at some times, some space things were starting to seem clearer to Jesse. Yet he was surprised to find at some other times that the more he looked at some other things, the less clear the other things seemed to seem. If some sky wanderers did not make their own light, and if Earth did not make its own light, did that mean that Earth was like a sky wanderer? It certainly did not feel that way. If circles were shapes, for example, did that mean that shapes were circles? It certainly did not feel that way. Yet something about those wanderers made Jesse feel a little bit dizzier in his mind and even dizzier on his feet. To make matters more surprising, Professor P.O.P.O. then pulled 4 objects out of his pack, 3 large and 1 small, but all squishy. Jesse loved that pack. He loved how it was big. He loved how it was bigger on the inside than it was on the outside. Professor P.O.P.O. unrolled the large 3 objects. They were sleeping bags. But neither Missy Jean nor Jessie noticed until later. They noticed the small squishy bag. It had marshmallows. Professor Pio explained, let's make a fire, roast marshmallows, and sleep under the stars. I'll wake you when Jupiter comes out. They did, and he did. Jessie and Missy Jean found Jupiter. Jupiter wasn't quite as sharp as Venus, but Jupiter was bold. Jupiter wore an orange robe. Jupiter was king. It sat solemnly on a floating throne. Professor Pio offered last night's binoculars around, those long black eyes that had shown them Venus's missing piece. Jessie twitched. Sure, he liked finding new things that were there, especially when they were hard to see. But last night's hollow bite from Venus was still eating at him. How had Professor Pio pointed out something that wasn't there, something that before had seemed so easy to see? They clutched on and took giant steps toward Jupiter through their new and superpower eyes. When they stared at Jupiter, it was more and so seemed closer. But when they stared at its black surrounding realm, that too was more and yet seemed farther. Their balance grew weaker, their vision grew stronger. Soon, in a line surrounding Jupiter, 4 brand new stars fuzzed into view. Wow, exclaimed Missy Jean, delighting in her discovery. Space is even bigger on the inner of its outer than I think I might have thought. Oy, thought Jessie. Are those regular stars or sky wanderers? Asked Missy Jean, sorting out her new discovery. Professor Pio replied, oh, those 4 wander around all right, but they don't just wander around. They wander around Jupiter. Those are 4 of Jupiter's moons. You can't see them without a telescope or binoculars. A world of worlds going around a world inside the biggest world of all? Jessie's thoughts swirled. They whirled. Jessie thought he had a funny feeling, but he did not feel that he had a funny thought. So a thing in the sky can go around a thing in the sky that goes around, cried Missy Jean, and then she slapped a hand on her own mouth to keep at least her sentence from running away toward forever. So much was slipping, super slick, yet somehow steadily. And so a heavy rock can fly like light and wander through the dark of space? Wondered Jessie. The earth feels so still, and started Missy Jean, and still it moves, saw Jessie. And as Jessie thought this thought, he too moved, this time through time, toward the future. He grew older. Perhaps you might say, but only by a minute or two, and only at the speed of life. Yes, but this time he felt it. The end. Okay, wait. So that's it. So that is it. I think we're going to stop. So that's it. That's the story. And I'm just going to change view. That's the story. That's why Earth moves, or that's why we believe Earth moves, or partly why we believe, because we saw that Venus goes through phases, and we saw that Jupiter has moons, and we didn't see any of that until we had a telescope. And by we, I mean Galileo. And none of that even proves that Earth moves. It just started strongly suggesting very strongly that we might believe that the Earth moves. And that's the deal. And I'll see you next week. Good night.